My name is Eli, and I'm a recent art school graduate, but instead of feeling proud, I'm consumed by a deep sense of dread. Despite my relentless efforts, I haven't been able to land a job in the art world. I've sent out countless applications and received nothing but rejection letters in return. It's as if the universe is conspiring against me. To make matters worse, I'm drowning in bills. My scholarship covered my tuition, but it was never enough to survive. I've pretty much worked every odd job imaginable, from cleaning houses to waiting tables, just to scrape by. Working during those years going to college, I encountered the worst of humanity. I had clients who refused to pay me, bosses who took advantage of me, and customers who treated me like dirt. I felt like I was constantly fighting a losing battle. But nothing compares to the emptiness I feel now. I pour my heart and soul into my artwork only to have it go unnoticed. It's a dark, lonely place to be where self doubt and fear are my only companions. The road to becoming an artist has been a tumultuous one, and it all began when I was 9 years old and my mother died. She threw herself off a cliff and into the ocean, leaving behind nothing but a legacy of pain and unanswered questions. But that is when I discovered my gift. I got obsessed with drawing my mother. I drew and painted hundreds, if not thousands, of portraits of her, exaggerating her features to the point where she was unrecognizable. I soon started doing it for other portraits that I would create as well. I would morph people into monsters, crush and stretch their features until it was satisfied. The hunger, the desire to truly see someone, to know them, to understand them, and see them for exactly what they are, nothing more, nothing less. My paintings only grew more and more monstrous as I grew older. Needless to say, my art didn't win me any brownie points with therapists and the like. In fact, as soon as they heard about my artwork, as soon as they saw it, how do I say this? This genre of my art had a profound effect on people. Therapists would start treating me very oddly. It was as if they were afraid of me for some reason and were just waiting to find any reason to get out of seeing me again. I remember one therapist I had, I believe his name was Dr. Lacey. I remember Dr. Lacey's office like it was yesterday. The beige walls, the worn armchair, the flickering fluorescent lights. But what stands out most in my memory is the drawing I made of him. At the time, I was 16 and seeing Dr. Lacey for my usual sessions. Like all my previous therapists, he had grown increasingly, almost obsessively curious after seeing pictures of my paintings. I couldn't help it. Whenever I looked at someone, I saw their true form, their deepest fears and desires writ large. Sometimes it only takes a glance for me to see beyond the obvious, and sometimes it requires me to actually start drawing a portrait of them for their true selves to be revealed. And the latter was the case with Dr. Lacey. A few years before I started going to Dr. Lacey, I saw a specialist who would tell me that what I was experiencing, what I was seeing, was perfectly explainable by science. And foundationally, that gave me a new hope that I could recover and become more normal. So, after conducting a comprehensive evaluation to rule out any underlying medical or psychiatric conditions that could be causing me to have this perception, those possibilities were ruled out. Since there were no medical or psychiatric explanations, the specialist concluded that I was experiencing a form of synesthesia, a condition in which stimulation of one sensory or cognitive pathway leads to automatic, involuntary experiences in a second sensory or cognitive pathway. So in this case, I was experiencing a type of synesthesia in which I could see people as monstrous due to emotional or psychological signals that I may be picking up on from them, whether consciously or subconsciously. I didn't quite understand that very well at the time, but Dr. Lacey was very intrigued by that theory. After reading about it in my files, he would bring it up every so often in our sessions. Dr. Lacey was fascinated by my paintings and often asked me to describe them in detail. Then one day he took it a step further. "Can you draw me?" he asked, leaning forward in his chair. I hesitated. Drawing someone I knew well was one thing, but Dr. Lacey was still a stranger to me in many ways. but he was my therapist and I trusted him, so I agreed. I took out my sketchbook and began to draw. At first, I tried to capture his features as accurately as possible, his thinning hair, his glasses, his kindly smile. But as I drew, something inside me shifted. I saw beneath his surface into the darkness lurking within. The pencil in my hand took on a life of its own. I drew Dr. Lacey's face contorting, his skin peeling away to reveal writhing tentacles and gaping maws. I drew him as a grotesque, otherworldly creature, but still wearing his familiar clothes. When I finished, I looked up at Dr. Lacey and handed the drawing to him. As I handed him the drawing, I noticed his hands shaking slightly as he took it from me. He seemed hesitant to look at the drawing at first, but eventually he brought it up to his face to study it more closely. His eyes moved over the drawing in a slow and deliberate manner, almost as if he was trying to understand every detail. As he continued to examine the drawing, his facial expressions shifted from fascination to horror. His eyes widened, and his mouth hung open slightly in disbelief. I could see the fear slowly creeping into his face as he realized what I had depicted in the drawing. He took a step back from me, as if he was afraid to be too close. Finally, he looked up at me, and the expression on his face sent shivers down my spine. There was a look of pure terror in his eyes, and I could see that he was struggling to compose himself. It was as if he had just come face to face with a monster, and he was afraid that it might come after him next. It was a naked terror, that kind of terror you feel when you're home alone in the shower, but a stranger walks in on your nakedness. He was staring at the drawing with a mix of horror and fascination. That's that's quite something, he said, his voice unsteady. What made you draw me like this? I shrugged. I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that I had seen the truth, and it wasn't pretty. I knew at that moment that Dr. Lacey had started to become scared of me too, not just because of the drawing, but because of what I was capable of. I had shown him a side of myself that was dark and terrifying, and he was no longer sure of how to deal with me. As I left his office that day, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. For once, someone had seen me for who I truly was, and they were afraid. Someone else felt the fear that I have had to live with since my mother died. Somehow, in that moment, I felt the most understood that I had ever felt before and since. As for the drawing itself, I still think about it sometimes, and every now and again I take it out and look at Dr. Lacey. The creature I had depicted was a twisted, nightmarish thing, with fanged mouths where eyes should be, and tendrils of flesh where hair should be. Its limbs were elongated and spindly, like a spider's, and its skin was slick and slimy to the touch. It was a being born of fear and corruption, and I had brought it to life on paper. After the Dr. Lacey experience, I took to drawing the people that made me uncomfortable. I needed to see if they were dangerous. I needed to see if they were monsters. So, every foster mom that beat me and every foster dad that touched me inappropriately, I would draw them and keep them in a shoebox. It gave me a sense of control to know that I saw them for who they truly were and they did not know it. It felt like I had the upper hand. As for Dr. Lacey, he never hurt me in any way, but I still kept his monster in that box with the other predators. It was something about our last few moments together that completely changed my perception of him. I never saw Dr. Lacey again after that session. He canceled our next appointment, and when I tried to call him, his number had been disconnected. I don't blame him for being scared of me. I'm scared of myself sometimes. Throughout college, though, my monstrosities became my signature art style. I would turn people into monsters. I myself would be surprised by the outcomes most of the time, stunned by the harrowing depictions. It's strange, but every time I create art, I think of my mother. And every time I think of my mother, I experience that pain and heartache all over again. But at the same time, I prefer to feel this way than to forget her. My mother's autopsy was a nightmare that still haunts me to this day. The water in her lungs was expected given the circumstances of her death, but what was found inside her stomach was a shock to everyone. A tiny scroll rolled tightly and tied with twine is what was discovered. The paper looked ancient, like something out of a history book, but it was the writing on the scroll that sent shivers down my spine. It was written in Latin. I didn't speak much Latin, but I kept the scroll. It felt like the last connection I had to her in her last moments. And I later had it translated. I needed to know what it said. On the scroll was this little rhyme: beyond the gate, a path unknown, a sacrifice required, the ultimate loan. With each step, the journey dark, the price too steep, the way too stark. But those who dare to pay the price, they see beyond the mortal guise. The cost is higher than one can tell, for this journey may lead you straight to hell. It would be an understatement to say that I was haunted by this rhyme, by the secrets it held and the questions it begged. Was my mother's death really a suicide, or was there something more sinister at play? Was she trying to warn me of a dangerous journey or encourage me to take it? My mother was an artist just like me. She was a talented painter and sculptor with a gift for capturing the raw beauty of the world around her. But despite her undeniable talent, she never got the recognition she deserved. The art community is a fickle and unforgiving place, and my mother was never able to break through its barriers. As for my father, I never knew my father. He was gone before I was even born, and my mother refused to talk about him after a while. All I have are a few scattered second-hand memories, fragments of a man who was never meant to be part of my life. After my mother's death, I was thrust into the foster care system. I bounced from home to home, never staying in one place for too long. It was a lonely, chaotic existence, and I often found solace in my art. So, when I was accepted into art school on a scholarship, it was like a lifeline had been thrown to me. Finally, I had a chance to escape the turmoil of my past and build a future for myself. But even with a degree in hand, the road ahead is uncertain and full of the most untimely sets of disappointment you wouldn't ask for. So when I got an Instagram DM from a user called tigermite_13, I was ready to do anything. This was someone that was interested in my art. Needless to say, I was thrilled. It had already been about 3 months since my last big project, and things were starting to feel a little tighter than usual. Sometimes I question whether or not I made the right decision by pursuing art. The industry is cutthroat and merciless. It's a never ending cycle of rejection and disappointment. But then I remember why I started down this path in the first place. The feeling of the brush on the canvas, the colors blending together to create something beautiful or something monstrous. It's a rush unlike anything else. So I cling to that feeling. I keep pushing forward, selling my paintings online to make ends meet. It's a small victory, but it's something. Tigeramite_13 wanted to meet to see my work in person. I usually just ship to whoever wants a painting. I never actually meet in person with anyone, so I sent him the link to my profile on DeviantArt and told him how he can make an order if he sees something that he likes. Plus, I also sent him my email address where he can send his idea if he wanted to request a custom job. So I got kind of annoyed when I saw his next message. He insisted on meeting the artist despite my best efforts to avoid this. So I reluctantly agreed to meeting him at a cafe a few days later. As I approached the cafe, I saw him sitting at a table. He was an older guy wearing a sharp suit, and he was bigger than the average guy, standing at nearly 7 feet and well built, almost muscular. His eyes almost seemed emerald sometimes, and his presence was intimidating. As we began to talk, I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. There was something off about this guy's behavior, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. He kept bringing up my mother's death. Your mother, she was a remarkable woman and artist. Her work took my breath away, he said. You're a fan of my mom's work? I asked curiously. He got a far-away look in his eyes, as if savoring a particularly good memory. Then he said, yes, I was a huge fan of her work. She did a few custom pieces for me. I dare say she was like family to me. He and I both stared at each other awkwardly. I was truly hoping that he was thinking what I was thinking. If my mom was like family to him, how come I've never seen him before? She knew what she was looking for, and she was willing to pay any price to find it. he continued. Even the ultimate loan. The ultimate loan. I knew I recognized the line, but I couldn't remember where I had heard it before. You see, your mother was a brave woman, he said, his deep voice sending shivers down my spine. She was on a mission to find a god, and she was willing to pay the ultimate price to reach him. I stared at him, my mind reeling with disbelief. My mother, the quiet and reserved woman who had always put me before anything else, was on a mission to find a god? It sounded like something out of a myth or a fairy tale. I even laughed a little, couldn't help it. But why are you telling me this? A god? Are you for real? I asked, my voice cracking with annoyance. Obviously, this guy is some sort of prankster, and I can't believe I fell for this bullshit. I started to get up to leave. You know what? Sit down, Eli. I shrugged. You're crazy. I took the breath to march away, but I only ended up sitting neatly back on my seat, as if I had never tried to leave in the first place. What is this? I looked around at the busy cafe. Everyone was engulfed in their own worlds. No one seemed even remotely interested in us. I chose a busy cafe on purpose so that I didn't have to be alone with this stranger. And now, how the heck did you do that? I demanded, scared shitless. It's exactly as I said. Gods? He smiled almost pityingly at me. So you're a god? I asked. That whole sentence just tasted foreign in my mouth. So my mom sold art to a god, but still couldn't break into the scene? The man leaned forward, his sharp features illuminated by the dim light of the cafe. Your mother did more than that. She fell in love with a god, your father. My eyes widened and I burst out laughing. Instinctively, I clapped a hand over my mouth so as not to disturb the other people in the cafe. But as I looked around, I noticed that my completely loud and random outburst of mirth went completely unnoticed by even our closest neighbor. I looked at the man. I can imagine that my expression was a mixture of confusion, fear, and accusation. He rolled his eyes and waved his hand. The scene around us seemed to blend together. I might as well tell you, seems like the jig is up anyways. He gave me a sheepish look that made him almost look like a petulant little boy. What the? Our surroundings cleared up and the mountains rolled into view on one side of us. We were outside. On the other side, the ocean creased and billowed like cool silk sheets into the horizon. A cliff. Realization hit me in the face like a boulder. This is, I stammered. Where your mom died, he finished the sentence for me. Tears started to form in my eyes, but I pushed them back. I could never be here without crying. I sniffled slightly and faced him. He looked at me apologetically. I wanted you to feel comfortable and in control, hence the cafe sitting, he said. So why not just meet at a freaking cafe then, like we planned, instead of using god magic to hypnotize me into coming here? It felt good to yell at him. This was a confusing situation. He opened his mouth to speak, but it was my turn to cut him off. Why are you even telling me any of this? He responded as if he knew that I was going to ask him this question. Because, my dear, you have inherited not only her gift of art, you have also inherited at least one of your father's supernatural abilities. I know you can see beyond the mortal guise. You, Eli, have peered into the realm of gods and monsters. Wait, hold on. I had to stop him. So when I see the monsters in people, are you saying that it's not just all in my head? He chuckled softly. Wow, humans really will find a way to explain everything away. He shook his head, but he still looked slightly impressed. They are very real, but of course, humans can't see them for what they truly are. So these monsters have been gods? I asked him, earnestly trying to understand. Some might have been, and some might have been actual monsters or even other creatures. There is so much that exists that the bare human eye cannot perceive. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why did he bring me here to this cliff? Was he suggesting that I was like my mother, somehow doomed to be on a quest to find my godly father? supernatural abilities. The idea still seemed ludicrous, but at the same time, it resonated with me on a deep level. The man handed me a sketch pad and a set of pencils, his gaze never leaving mine. Draw me, my dear. Show me what you see when you look at me. I hesitated, my fingers trembling slightly as I took the pad and pencils. I knew that my gift could reveal the darkest secrets of a person's soul, but what if this man was too powerful for me to handle? He hasn't hurt me yet, but I already knew that he was not human at all. I thought back to Dr. Lacey and so many others that I had seen throughout the years. Oh, how I regret truly seeing Dr. Lacey. But something inside me urged me to draw, to let my hand move across the page and reveal the truth. And so I sat down on the grass, sketchpad on my lap, and began to sketch, my pencil tracing the lines of his face, his body, his aura. As I worked, I felt a strange energy emanating from the man, like a pulsing force that seemed to warp the fabric of reality. Colors and shapes swirled around him, forming intricate patterns that made my head spin. And yet, I couldn't stop drawing, couldn't stop capturing the essence of this creature before me. The feeling in the air was electric, and I couldn't help but feel like something was off. I knew that I could see people for who they truly were, monsters or otherwise, but I wasn't seeing anything for this guy, even though he already told me that he was a god. However, I had a feeling that he was just good at hiding it, like Dr. Lacey was. The atmosphere changed. It was as if time had slowed down and everything became silent, except for the sound of my pencil moving across the paper. The monster that I drew on the paper was a creature of contrast. It had a face that was both beautiful and terrifying, with sharp cheekbones and a chiseled jawline that made it look like a Greek statue come to life. Its eyes were a mesmerizing shade of emerald green, but they also seemed to gleam with a hint of malice that made my skin crawl. As I continued to draw, the creature's body began to take shape. It had a muscular build, with sinewy arms and legs that looked almost like they were made of marble. Its skin was a dark shade of black that seemed to absorb the light around it, giving the creature an almost ethereal quality. But as beautiful as the monster looked, there was something deeply unsettling about it. Its fingers were long and pointed, like they were made for tearing flesh. Its teeth were razor sharp and gleamed in the light, and its eyes seemed to follow me wherever I went, like they were watching my every move. Despite my unease, I couldn't stop drawing. It was like the creature had taken control of my hand, guiding me as I filled in the details of its monstrous form, and as I drew, I continued to feel that same strange energy emanating from the creature, like it was feeding off my fear, trepidation, and anxiety. When I finally finished, I looked up at the god across from me. His expression was inscrutable, but I could sense that he would be pleased with what I had created. As I handed it to him, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. But as he looked at the drawing, I could see that same look of fascination that Dr. Lacey had shown me so many years ago. But there was no horror. Instead, there was satisfaction. Like the type of satisfaction you get from winning a wager that you always knew 100% that you were going to win. It was as if he had seen a reflection of his true self, and he was not afraid of what he saw. My heart raced as I looked at the portrait before me. It was beautiful and dark, just like the man himself. He seemed pleased with it, his lips curling into a sly smile. Very good, my dear. You have a talent that is beyond compare, just like your mother. I felt a sense of relief, but also a nagging feeling that I had just entered into a dangerous game, one that could have consequences beyond my imagination. And that is when I remembered where I knew the line from. The ultimate loan. The ultimate loan, I said. That's what was written on the scroll found in my mother's stomach. How do you know that? What do you know about my mother's death? I was leaning closer to him in anticipation without even realizing it. It was love that killed your mother, he said. As the man continued to speak, I felt a chill run down my spine. He spoke of my mother's love for my father. My father a god? My father Alcidion, the god of cunning, wisdom, and art? Their love was doomed from the start. Your father was the firstborn, and our mother had betrothed him to another goddess from birth. Hold on, I interrupted him. Our mother? So you're what, like my uncle or something? Yes, I am your uncle, Eurydes, god of stealth and strategy, he responded with a straight face. I searched his face for any sign that this could still just be an extremely elaborate prank, but he just gave me a matter of fact look before continuing with his story. Your mother was merely a pawn in your grandmother's game to show your father that she was in charge. Mother demanded that Al left the human world. She would hear nothing of the love that he found with a human woman. So your father planned to bring you and your mother Felicia into our world. Your grandmother knew that it would take the ultimate sacrifice. In fact, she created the spell and said that if she survived and made it into our realm, then she would let their love be. And once that was done, they would have brought you over as well. But as you know, your mother never made it. The man's words painted a vivid picture of my mother, standing on the edge of the cliff, determined to see her love again. I could almost see her standing there, the wind blowing her hair around her face, her eyes shining with tears. And then he spoke of how her own mother in law had tricked her, waited until she had performed the ritual, swallowed the scroll to open the gates, and then closed the gate on her. So instead of crossing over to the realm of gods and monsters and reunited with her love, she fell to her death. My heart sank as I realized the truth. My mother hadn't died by accident or suicide, she had died because she had been betrayed. I sat there in stunned silence as the god finished his story. I felt a mix of anger and sadness welling up inside me. How could they have done this to my mother? How could they have been so cruel? So, if I'm supposed to believe this, why are you here now? I asked. Your father sent me to find you. He never stopped thinking about you all these years, he said. Wow, I replied sarcastically. That must be why I have never seen him before in my entire life. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Just give him a chance. Mother is no longer the ruler of our house. She has stepped down, and your father, the first son, is now the ruler so he can make new rules. That's why it's now safe for you to come over to our realm. Meet your family. My heart was pounding in my chest as I listened to his words. A part of me desperately wanted to believe him, to finally meet my father and learn the truth about who I am. But another part of me was filled with doubt and fear. Could I really trust this stranger who claimed to be sent by my father? And then he dropped the bombshell. I am a demigod. You know, my father being a god and my mother being human. It was all becoming too much to handle. You are still part human, so to come with me, you will have to perform the ritual that your mother attempted. There is an eclipse happening in a few days, so we can do it then. You still have the scroll, right? He asked as if he was trying to figure out if I wanted a refill on my cup of coffee or something. The idea of performing the same ritual that killed my mother was terrifying, but at the same time, I couldn't bear the thought of missing this chance to finally know my true family. Flashes of memories from my years in foster care rolled like a film reel through my mind. I tried to keep my voice steady as I responded. Yeah, why does it have to be during the eclipse? Can't we do it some other time? He shook his head. I'm sorry, but the eclipse is the only time when the gate to our realm can be open to anyone other than gods. We have to act quickly if we want to get you through. So if I go with you, I'll be stuck until the next eclipse. That could be years, I countered. No, you won't. Your father will be able to grant you a special key later on, but your first journey needs to happen during the eclipse. Think of it as ensuring that both your halves, human and god, just like the sun and the moon during the eclipse, remain intact as you travel across realms. My mind was racing as I weighed the risks against the potential rewards. What if he was lying to me? What if this was all just some elaborate scheme to get me to do something dangerous? But what if it was all true and I was passing up the opportunity of a lifetime? I couldn't help but wonder if this was really the change I had been waiting for. Was this the way my life was supposed to be? Living in a constant state of disbelief, wondering if my father was really a god and if I was really a demigod? It all seemed too surreal, too impossible to be true. But then again, what did I have to lose? My life as it was before was filled with nothing but emptiness and longing. I was always searching for something, something that could give me purpose, something that could make me feel whole. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the change that I had been waiting for. Meet me back here at this cliff at midnight in 3 days. Those were his last words to me that day. 3 days later, the clock struck midnight as I stood there at the edge of the cliff, staring out into the vast expanse of the ocean before me, the tiny scroll clutched tightly in my hand. I still had my doubts, but I needed to know if this was real. I needed to believe that my life had a greater purpose. As I waited, my heart pounding in my chest, my uncle appeared beside me. He was solemn, yet determined. He immediately took the scroll from me and began the ritual, his voice low and melodic as he spoke the ancient words. I watched in amazement as the sky turned a deep shade of purple, the stars shining like diamonds in the night. I could feel the power of the ritual coursing through my veins, a strange energy that made me feel both invincible and vulnerable at the same time. Then he handed back the scroll to me and told me to swallow it whole. My heart was racing as I did what he said, feeling the scroll pass through my throat and down into my stomach. And then my uncle pushed me off the cliff, jumping off after me. I plummeted down into the water below, feeling the cold, salty spray of the ocean hit my face. For a moment, everything was chaos and confusion, the world spinning around me. But then, as I sank deeper and deeper into the dark abyss, I felt a strange sense of peace and calm settle over me. The pressure around me seemed to increase with each passing moment. The darkness that surrounded me was total and all encompassing. Yet I felt an odd sense of comfort and familiarity, as if some part of me, at some point, had been here before. As I closed my eyes, I couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. Had I made a terrible mistake? Or was this the beginning of something incredible?